are Christine and Arianna, and this is This One Life, the podcast where we untangle the beautiful mess of being a woman in your 30s. Think mindset, self growth, and the stuff that no one warns us about. Today, we will actually talk about a book. It's a book by James Clear, and I guess some of you might have read it. It's The Atomic Habits. We have a copy each, and we will talk about his core philosophy of the book. In this episode, we will do the first two laws, and in the next episode, we will do the third and the fourth law. So I think that will be pretty cool. A bit of a change. But let's start with catch up. Ari, how are you?
I'm fine. It's a bit of a busy period, but we like it because it means many things are happening, which I think it's always good. And by the time this episode will be live, 99% I will have started my new job, so I'm super excited for that. What about you, Cree?
That's so exciting. I feel like it's a lot happening for you now, a lot of change. Wow, a nervous but exciting period.
Yeah.
Here, we're just done with sickness. My kids have been sick for a week, so thank God we're done with that because it's been a very testing week. A lot of patience, and probably looking back on it, I was not that patient. I was tested a lot, but it's okay. Yeah, so I'm just grateful. It's a new week, and I'm excited that everyone are healthy and good.
So now they are doing a little bit better, right?
Yes, they are. They're sleeping through the night.
That's good.
It's been 2 weeks of not great sleep at all, and that really takes a toll on you.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think all the parents can relate here.
Yeah.
So I was wondering before starting, to deep dive on the laws and the book, have it ever happened to you to wanting to do something, saying to yourself, I really need or I really should do this thing, and then you don't do it?
Of course. I feel like we all can relate to that. Trying to start a new habit and then doing it for a couple of days and then falling off again. And now, as I've learned a lot about habits, not only from this book, but from other sources as well, I know that most likely that comes from you not completely identifying as that person who already has that habit or is doing that thing or has that thing.
I think sometimes it happens that I always want to go for the big goal, which is totally fine. But sometimes you forget that you need the so famous baby steps to get there. So you don't really think about the tiny habits that you can build to make the big change, the big habit to happen.
Exactly. He talks about this. He talks about becoming 1% better each day, right? People want to suddenly achieve the goal, but how do you do that? You take those baby steps. You get 1% better each day. And I remember actually we talked about this book a long time ago.
Yeah.
When we had just read it, probably 4 years ago. And you said to me you really liked him talking about that 1%.
Yeah, because I think the 1% every day, it's so achievable and it makes you feel so self-confident, and you're just doing something small, but that makes such a big difference at the end of 1 month, 1 year, whatever time span you consider. And I think this is so underrated. No one thinks about that.
It's true. And also it's about playing on the team with your brain. So your brain doesn't like things that are not familiar. So you achieving a huge goal sounds and feels scary to the brain. So if you start with those baby steps, you slowly make the brain adapt and make it a familiar thing. And then the brain is like, this is not a problem. This is okay. Let's do that. That can be a part of our identity and how we act and behave.
Yeah, I think it's always so interesting when also in our private conversations we talk about how the brain works. You read a lot of books about that, and I always find it super interesting. But one thing that really sticks with me is the fact that, as you said, also multiple times to me when we were talking about this. It's that our brain wants to protect us from scary new things. So that's one of the reasons why we seem like we cannot achieve a goal. So as you said, if we get accustomed every day by doing a tiny bit, our brain will definitely think, I'm carving this new path little by little, and it's not too bad.
Our brain likes predictability over progress. It like the past because that's predictable. Everything you have done in the past, it wants that to happen in the future as well because that's what it knows. So changing your habits is something new, is something unpredictable and not familiar. So of course it doesn't love that at all, and that's why it makes it so hard. James Clear talks about that when he mentions you need to change your identity. Like you need to think that you are a person who has that new so if you want to become a writer, you have to think and identify with a writer or an author. So here and now, you have to already identify and think, okay, today I am an author. Tomorrow I am an author. And then sit down and start writing or do the habits that an author do.
That's so true.
He talks a little bit about that, but I think the book doesn't go too deep into that, which I think is a bit sad because it's hard. You need some prompts to help you identify this new identity, and you need to come up with or think about their values and their beliefs. And he does not dive deep into that, of course, because he more focused on the habits and how to form and create that.
Yeah, I think it's so true that if you're not used to think at yourself as someone who it's a writer, but you always think, oh, I will never be able to write that book. I will never become a writer. It doesn't happen that instantly you just switch and think, from today on, I'm 100% sure that I am a writer. So as you said, you need a lot of help and maybe start using prompts or just doing a lot of work on that part.
Yeah.
And I think that part becomes so beneficial to the following steps of creating new habits.
Yeah, I would say it's the foundation. Of course, you can start small habits, but if you want a big change, a habit that is completely outside your comfort zone, you need to do the identity shift.
I think this really goes hand in hand with what we talk in the last 2 episodes about energy leaks and boundaries. It goes hand in hand with the awareness part, the conscious choices. So probably we can think about like an episode or like a workbook that focuses a little bit on like prompts and awareness on identity, if it's something that could be interesting.
Let us know if you're interested in help to shift your identity. We can definitely dive a little bit deeper into that. And that also goes into manifestation, right? Identity shifting is a huge topic there. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's working. It happened to me. As we said before, it didn't happen overnight. It really took some practical work as well as mental work. I've always identified as someone who is not really able in doing practical work. And I mean like sewing and everything.
Those kind of hobbies.
Yeah, like crafts and all that stuff. I was always like, okay, I'm not able to do that. I'm not interested. And I remember also my family, my friends were like, oh no, you're more the intellectual type, the girl who reads and studies and do this other type of things. So I guess there was also this kind of reinforcement from my environment. And I was like, I'm not even interested about doing that.
You were accepting that as truth.
Exactly, that was my truth. I wasn't able to do arts and crafts, and it was like that. No way of changing that. And I remembered that then I really would like to try sewing, and I didn't say that to anyone. Like it was my secret. No one knew about that, not even my husband, because I really wanted to be a super personal project without any external pressures. And I proved myself wrong. I was able able to do that. It took some time because especially at the beginning, I had to fight with myself because everything I was doing, my mind was like, you're not able to do that. You're not a crafty person. This is not your piece of cake and all that stuff. But at the end, I was able to do that. And yeah, probably it's not becoming my future job, but I can do it. I can do it as better as anyone else that was attending that basic sewing course. And I was like, wow, so I am a crafty person.
I love that. This is such a great example on changing your habits and also your identity. And also a good example of what we take as truth is not necessarily always the truth. And you can
Yeah.
change that. So empowering. I love
Yeah.
that for you.
And I felt so better after because I felt I changed my identity. But I guess also another takeaway, at least for me, was not listening to external interferences because sometimes they want you to stuck with your old identity and you don't need that.
People don't like change. They like to know how you are and leave you in that box so you don't become scary to them. I also recently did an identification change. For some reason, I have always said to myself that I am a procrastinator. And I have hated that. I hate that I always procrastinate. But I guess I have reinforced that belief so many times and it became a part of my identity. Last week, I decided that is not me anymore. I am not a procrastinator. But what am I then? I am a person who do the task right away. And I repeated it to myself so many times over and over. And I am now a person who do the thing right away. And I love it. And as you said, it gives you so much motivation and you become proud of yourself. It's such a small thing, but again, it feels so big and it gives you the power back. Just love it. You can even start suing when you thought you couldn't. But again, you can't expect to be great at suing when you haven't started or tried it a little bit. So it needs practice.
Yeah. If you just expect to be perfect, probably you will just reinforce your idea of, I'm not good at that because you tried once and you failed, which I think that happened to everyone to fail the first time they tried something.
And failure is just you trying at something that you haven't tried before.
Yeah.
But this goes back again to James Clear and that 1% better each day, right?
Yeah. And also it ties back to be aware of your mental mechanism. And for example, as you said, of me saying to myself, I'm a procrastinator. Just stop, identify that, and then be aware of that pattern. And then you can build on it.
Yeah. First step is awareness, always. The hard part. I feel when you have become aware, that's like 50%.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's the first step. Okay, should we go back to James Clear and his 4 laws?
Yeah, because in this episode, we want to focus on the first 2 laws. So we can deep dive a little bit on that. We can leave some time for you to reflect on that if you want to grab the book. And then in the following episode, we will deep dive on the last 2 laws.
But we can mention all of them though, just so you guys know them. The first one is Q, and he says that you need to make it obvious. Second one is craving, make it attractive. The third one is response, make it easy. And the fourth one is reward, make it satisfying.
The first is to provide a clear cue for your new habit. And he proposes 2 different techniques that, of course, you can also use together. But the first technique, and I think probably this one is also so popular, you can hear a lot about that on TikTok and Instagram. But basically, it's called the habit stacking. So it's associating a new habit with an existing one, like one that you are always doing. You don't even think about that. You're not making effort to do that. So I'm going for such a simple example, but I think it's probably the one that works the most. So let's say every morning I'm used to brush my teeth, but I really want to use also mouthwash, but for any reason, I'm not doing that. What I want to do is say to myself, okay, after brushing my teeth, I will use the mouthwash. And this is what is habit stacking.
Yeah, after one habit that you have, you add the new one that you want to incorporate too. So you want to incorporate washing your mouth, and then you do it right after your original habit, which is cleaning your teeth in the morning. It's very smart. I have done that myself for my morning routine. So I'm usually I'm stacking having a coffee with writing in my journal. So I feel like writing in my journal sometimes is a bit hard, but then I stack that after making my coffee, and now I associate those two things together. So now finally it's a part of my morning routine, like it goes on autopilot.
Yeah, and another technique that could help you a lot, and it can go in combination with this one that we just said, is to prepare your environment in order to have this new habit that you want to build really visible, so it makes it easier to do that. So taking the journaling example, I've also tried that in the morning. If I want to know that I'm going to write on my journal even 3 lines, what I'm going to do is just putting my journal next to my bed table, so I know that this is the first thing I'm going to grab in the morning, because I've tried leaving my journal on a desk, on the table, but the effort I need to do in order to reach that, it's something that I need to think about. That it doesn't make it automatic. Instead, just having there as soon as I wake up, it just makes it so easier for me to follow through my new habit.
I love that. I'm doing that all the time. And I think like especially when it comes to working out, right? A lot of people probably wants to start to work out. You need to make it easy for you. Lay your clothes out the night before, put them, I don't know, in the bathroom if you get dressed there, leave your sneakers out or your jogging shoes, and just make it easy, accessible, and visible.
You need to eliminate all the friction between the new habit and your current way of living. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially if you think about after a long day of work or the things you had to do during your day, and then you have to work out. If you have already your clothes there, everything is nice and prepared, your gym bag or whatever you need, you're like, oh, it's already there, I might just grab it and go. Instead, just thinking that, okay, I need to pack my bag, take my clothes, prepare the shoes. No. You need a lot of motivation, so probably it's not going to happen after a long, tiresome day.
Yeah. Of course. And you also mentioned that you should think through when and where you want to do the new habit, so it becomes easier for you to know exactly when and where. So think through, for example, working out. At what time do I want to work out? And where, like what is the route? Where do I go? Is it the gym? Is it just a walk in the neighborhood? Or is it in front of the TV, a short workout there? Think through these things, because it makes it more clear to your brain, and then you're more likely to follow through.
Yeah, so true.
I also want to mention the tip I have that he does not mention, but I think visualization is a good exercise here. So as we have talked about, the brain doesn't love things that are not familiar, but a way to make something more familiar to the brain is to already have visualized something. You visualize you doing the new habits. For example, visualize you putting on your workout gear, going out of the door, taking that short walk in the neighborhood and coming back. That's a way to make your brain more familiar with this new habit, and therefore also less resistant.
I guess it's something that also musicians do, right? Like piano players, they visualize themselves playing the piano, and actually studies show that it works, as if they actually played the piano for many hours to practice.
Yeah, they became better without actually physically sitting and playing piano, just rehearsing it in their mind. And this is something that also top athletes do. They visualize themselves running in that marathon, for example, and getting that time or winning the whole thing. It's a really good tip.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome. I just do it myself and it works. And the second law, what is that, Ari?
The second law, as we were saying before, is to make this new habit attractive. So you really must crave the new habit. One technique that we could use is to pair your action that you need to do with an action that you actually want to do. This is similar to habit stacking, but motive is a little bit different behind it.
So, if you love watching TV, you love watching Netflix, but you also want to start working out, right? You can add those two up together and do them at the same time. You go to the gym, you go to the treadmill, you put on your Netflix show, and you start running. Then you do the habit that you're used to, that you're more likely to do, which is watching the Netflix show, and you add in the habit that you are less likely to do, which is the running. And another one is also just putting on music, right? When you're cleaning or doing something boring at home.
Yeah, it's so good because your brain doesn't associate anymore cleaning with just boring stuff, but you're lifted up with music.
Yeah. James Clear also mentions that if you become a part of an environment where the habit is already installed or is the default, it's easier for you because we tend to adapt to the people that are the closest to us. So if they become the closer to you, it's easier for you to also install that new habit as a part of your identity.
Yeah, that's so true. I think we both had this experience when we lived in Australia, for example. The culture there was so different, at least to the Italian one. Simple example, but in Italy, on the contrary of what people tend to think, especially in big cities, you need to rush a lot. Everything is so hectic, you don't have time, you walk fast, and it's just a lot to handle. The result of that, of course, is that the majority of the time you're super stressed. And even if you don't want to be stressed, even if you are trying all your best to avoid that, you're going to be influenced by this environment. And I'm the kind of person who is really influenced by stressed people around her. Instead, in Australia, like environment, it's so much different. Everyone is so cooler and chill, and there's no rushing. Just a totally different lifestyle. And I saw how different I was as well. 99% of the time I wasn't stressed at all. And when I used to go to the supermarket, for example, here in Italy, when the cashier scans your thing, you need to pack everything super quickly. Otherwise, the person who is waiting in line is becoming really frustrated with you taking your time. This is something that I started to do as well because the environment was molding me in that way. Instead, in Australia, I remember people taking their time to put their grocery shopping in their bag. And I know this sounds so silly, but that actually changed my way of doing things because the people around me were doing things differently.
I think that's such a great example. Wow. I also can't remember being stressed in Australia.
Just for exams, but the normal amount of stress that it's good for you to go through exams.
Yeah, but about packing the groceries is not a nice thing, having to be stressed. And yesterday I was in the grocery store with my baby, and having her on me and having to pack is already a stressful situation because I'm carrying her in like a thing on my chest. And if you buy groceries for a whole week, it's a lot to pack. And then having the pressure to pack as fast as possible because you know people are giving you the death stare is not nice at all. But about when it comes to being in an environment that supports that habit, I think we should talk about types of environment because it doesn't have to be a physical environment. It can be, for example, you surrounding yourself or you're following special people on social media that only gives you that vibe, you know, like that only talks about the stuff that you want to be a bigger part of, or who already have those habits and routines that you also want. So it can be online, and also it can be, for example, bigger programs. You can be part of a program, for example, a 6-month program with a huge communities that you can surround yourself virtually with. You can probably have Zoom calls with them, or there are probably some Zoom calls included in this program or something, so you can talk more with them. I feel like that is also a great way to surround yourself with the environment that you want and the people that you want to install habits and change your identity.
If for any reason that is not possible at the moment, I know it's hard, but at least you can try to distance yourself from the people that make you going through the same bad habit again and again. Which, for example, if you want to quit smoking, but all your friends are like smokers, probably what I would do is think, okay, maybe I should distance myself at least for a period of time when I'm going through the process of quitting smoke. Should I just call them instead of seeing them in presence and smoke with them?
Good tip. Yeah, so that's the two laws that we were going to talk about. I hope you guys got some great tips from that without having to read the book. And if you, of course, want to go and dive deeper, you should read the book because it's very easy. It's an easy read.
Yeah, and you can find it in, I guess, basically every language.
Yeah, I read that it was translated into 60 or more languages. So
Wow.
most likely you have it in your language, which is also cool.
And also, I subscribe to his newsletter, and you receive it once a week. And I think it's really nice. It's of course for free, and he gives a lot of food for thought. So I would recommend it.
You know, he actually has one of the largest following on his newsletter. It's more than 3 million people subscribing to that newsletter. That's wild. Now we're wrapping up, and please talk to us on DMs if you want to chat about something, or leave a comment under this episode. And we will
Yeah.
talk to you in the next one, diving deep into the third and the fourth law.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.